All right, welcome, my friends, to another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on our little journey here of trying to figure out what the best supplements are, what the best lifestyle, biohacks, and all that good stuff are for our health. So I appreciate you guys being here. This is going to be a really cool show. We're going to share some things I've been doing some research on recently that garnered so much, I don't know, hate? Would hate be the right word? I don't know. Anger, maybe animosity, threats. Gosh, I tell you what, people on Instagram and people just commenting is so funny to me because people are so triggered by so much information. We're going to share a lot of controversial information today. And just as a foundation, I think, for what we're talking about, I just want you to know that, like Matt Blackburn says, and I say, there is a alternative health. I'm not sure if he came up with that phrase or I did or someone else did, but there's basically the alternative health world, right? And that's like the mainstream alternative health world. And that's what everyone's talking about. You know, fasting, intermittent fasting, sugar's bad for you, and all this kind of stuff, right? Just the mainstream stuff that you hear from most, 99.9% of the people out there in the alternative health. And then there's the alternative health crowd. And that's sort of where I stand, where Matt stands, and a lot of other people as well, trying to really dive into the nitty gritty of what's actually going on. And maybe some very controversial things are going to be shared in today's show. And so the Instagram post that I reference, I'll put a link to it. And as always, I'll put links to everything at extremehealthradio.com/704. I've got tons of, not just the sponsors for today's show, but I also have tons of research and article links and all kinds of stuff that you're going to want to get access to at extremehealthradio.com/704. So I posted originally on Instagram a post. It was like 12 or 14 substances you should avoid. And we're going to go through because it was like a firestorm of people being so angry and so upset. And I won't even share with you the direct messages I got from people. I mean, it was like I was shooting a sacred cow or something. It was very bizarre, but I think people are really, really triggered these days. I think I think what a lot of times people do from reading the comments, I'm going to go through some of the comments as well, is that people, like with anything in life, they want to have a savior, right? They want to find the one thing that's going to change their health, or they want to find the one supplement that's going to change their health, or they find some health guru on the internet and they want to implicitly trust everything they have to say because they do more research, or maybe they're very dynamic, or maybe they're very intelligent, or whatever the case may be. People really want, it's like the savior complex, right? And after doing 703 radio shows to date, this is episode 704, going back to 2012, I've realized that people have their specialties when it comes to health, and they're very kind of myopic in terms of what they specialize in. And when you interview people like that for a long time, right, years and years, you kind of see through who really knows what they're talking about and who's really kind of just BSing, or who knows a lot about one subject but not necessarily another subject. Or you may have experts in different fields like biophotons and light energy and how light affects our mitochondria. Then you might, or biohacking, and then you might have other people dealing with minerals. Then you might have other people dealing with chiropractic care or body work or whatever. And they may say things that contradict what other people are saying, but they haven't been, you can tell that they haven't been exposed to what that other person is saying. And I don't know what the cause of that is. It's like they just research what they research and they don't go beyond that. I'm not sure exactly what's the cause of it, but when you do as many radio shows as I have since 2012, and I mean, prior to that, I probably listened to or watch videos on and radio shows. I mean, 704 episodes, I've probably 10 or 20 times that in terms of the radio shows that I've listened to over the years. I've been listening and actively listening to podcasts and radio shows since 2005, I think. So, I've been access to a lot of different people and a lot of really intelligent, dynamic people out there. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I want to get into in this episode is the firestorm that was created from my post on Instagram called 14 Substances That You Should Avoid. And I realized the thumbnail for this episode is kind of, I put 12, I accidentally put 12, but we're going to go through 14 of them. And many of them are things that I'll just, briefly go over. And many of them are things that may be very controversial to you. And so the purpose of this episode isn't to give you all the studies, although I will quote and cite studies and give you links to those. And my purpose isn't to convince you that I'm right or that I have the gospel truth, because in your world, I'm one of the many podcasts that you listen to, right? I listen to, probably 5 hours of content a day of podcasts, and I feel like that's my duty as a radio show host, to expose myself to different people and what they have to say about different things. And so I listen to everything on double speed. So I listen to probably at least 5 hours of content. So about 2.5 hours a day or more. I'd say 3 hours a day. So I'm listening to constantly tons and tons of information. And so my job isn't to convince you. My job isn't to be your guru. My job is to say, hey, we've all been told, like, for example, we'll talk about vitamin D. That's one of the more controversial things in this list here. We've all been told to take vitamin D. Maybe there's some more science to show that may not be the case. And my job is to highlight some of that and say, hey, you can go now research. And if you want to go do research and find out that you're still going to take vitamin D, that's totally cool. I'm not here to convince you that vitamin D is toxic. I'm saying, here's what I found. Take a look at it and do whatever the heck you want to do with it, right? I really don't care. It's kind of like getting into this place where with this big C, little v, and this outbreak that's going around the world right now, I'm done sort of trying to convincing people that they should not take the V, the injection. I'm done. I'm just done. I can't convince anybody. I don't want to. If you want to take that and you don't want to ask me or don't want to look at the research I'm sending you, or you're closed-minded, I just don't care. I'm sorry if you're a family member, if you're a friend, and bad things happen to you as a result. I'm sorry, but there's nothing I could do. I can't save you. So as long as someone is going to be closed-minded and a know-it-all, there's nothing I could do to help you. And so a lot of these things are very controversial to me too. And so one other aspect I want to highlight as well is that a lot of people on the receiving end, as the receiver of this information, you follow different people like, Dr. Berg or Dr. Eric Berg or Dr. whatever, person on Instagram or whatever, saying you should take these things. For you as a consumer, it's like, okay, now what do I do about this guy? And so maybe 80% of what he says is good, and there's 20% that's bad, or 20% that's not accurate. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with taking what you agree with someone and then, letting the rest go. There's nothing wrong with that. But as the propagator of this information, I think it's really important to look at people who are advocating some of these substances and look at whether or not they sell these supplements. And if they do, then right away that they have a decision to make. Either what I'm saying is true or false. If it's true, they have a decision to make. They can either slam me and say my evidence is not real, or they can take a look at the evidence and decide not to sell them anymore and say, you know what, sorry guys, I was wrong about that. And I tell you what, the doctors in the natural health world have a very difficult time saying they were wrong. But for me, I want to get at the truth. I may be wrong about all of this stuff. We don't know. But I'm just looking at evidence. I'm gathering information from different people I've interviewed. I'm looking at the science of what these different studies are showing. And I'm sharing it with you. And, but it may be wrong as well. So I have no problem saying that. And my friend of mine, Matt Blackburn, he's a perfect example of this. So he was selling DHA, which is another thing we're going to talk about in today's episode, DHA. Subsequently, during the time that he was selling this, he found out, dude, this is poison. This is absolute poison. I can't. So now he had to make a decision. Am I in it for the money? Do I want to just extract money from people and, continue making a ton of money? Because the omega-3 DHA fish oil industry is $1 billion industry. It's going to be in multiple billions by 2027, I think. I mean, it's the number one supplement sold in natural health right now is omega-3 fatty acids, DHA. So he finds out it's poison. He sells it. What does he do? What does he do? Anybody with bit of integrity is going to swallow some pride and say, you know what, I was wrong about that. And now he's doing just the opposite, helping educate people about the dangers of these things. And so, but the problem is that a lot of people in his boat would have just continued selling them and not looking at the evidence. And you can't, it's hard to suss out those people. Who are they, you know? And so it's really difficult. You know, this is a really, really difficult subject to talk about. And I'd recommend listening to his radio show. I listen to it all the time. It's Mito Life Radio, and he's doing some great work, and I love supporting him. And that's why we sell his supplements in our store, if you guys want to get that. And, I think we have a coupon code for 15% off on biochargeme.com. And it's under the Mito Life section, and you'll see him on there. But that's why we like to support him, because he's humble. You know, he's trying to find the truth, and he's doing research, and he's willing to say, you know what, I was wrong. And that's really something that a lot of doctors are very prideful and don't want to do that. Okay, so anyway, a lot of sort of foundation here. Let's go through these. So I want to try to keep this relatively short, but I'm going to do a little commercial halfway through and then another little commercial. And I hope you guys support us and our sponsors, and this is how we keep going with our work. Okay, so the first one is lectins. And most of you guys know lectins. Most people that are in the alternative health world know about lectins. We did a whole show, episode 590, with Dr. Stephen Gundry about lectins. And they're really just proteins that bind to carbohydrates. And the same features that lectins use to defend plants and nature, these same features can cause problems in our human gut microbiome and our digestion. And they resist being broken down in the gut. And so they're stable, like in really acidic environments. And there's features that protect these lectin-containing plants in nature. And a plant's designed to have these poisons within them to prevent predators from eating them, because they can't get up and run around, or they can't escape someone trying to catch them. They're planted in the ground, right? They can't move. So they excrete these lectins. And these lectins, when we eat them, are incredibly toxic. And so most plants have lectins. Many of them do, and they're very difficult to digest and cause all kinds of issues. And if you want to learn more about that, you can listen to the show we did with Dr. Gundry, Stephen Gundry, episode 590. So, I mean, that's not a big deal. Most of you guys know about that. And then the other one is phytic acid. Adam Bergstrom has some controversial things to say about phytic acid. But just going with the mainstream alternative for this one, it's found in most seeds, like these phytates, and the functions in the plant as a storage for phosphorus. Okay, so phytic acid, what it does is it impairs the absorption of certain key minerals, zinc and calcium, iron, and it's also called the anti-nutrient. And I have a study showing that. And most people, know about phytic acid. So that's why if you're going to eat these seeds and nuts and bird food and stuff like that, which I lived on for years, if you're going to eat those, make sure to soak them and to sprout them and to remove the skins and peels, like on the almonds and things. This is where a lot of the phytic acid is contained. So that's why I don't typically eat too many nuts and seeds these days. But yeah, so phytic acid, that's something that we can all agree on, not very controversial at all. And I have a study here that says phytates in foods and significance for humans, food sources, intake, processing, bioavailability, and analysis. And so I have a whole study here. You guys can take a look at it if you want. It's kind of boring to me. I just, suffice it to say, phytates are bad. Most of us agree on that, and it's not really that controversial. So let's see. The next one is going to be high fructose corn syrup. Okay, so most of you guys know, that this is a bad substance, right? It leads to colon cancer. It robs magnesium from your body. And so it's very, very dangerous, this high fructose corn syrup. And the role that retinol plays in turning genes on and turning genes off, along with how high fructose corn syrup and supplemental synthetic vitamin D interferes with the process of turning genes on and turning genes off. And then in the 1980s, they added high fructose corn syrup and GMO. And what people don't know about those food additives is that what they're designed to do is to lower copper in the liver and increase iron in the liver, which is the exact opposite of what our body needs. Like, it's supposed to be lower iron in the liver, more copper in the liver, right? It's the total opposite. And so what they do, what high fructose corn syrup does, is it inverses those two minerals, copper and iron, which is really, really damaging to the body. And, that's not even getting into a lot of the ways that it was made and what industries it supports. Corn syrup is just one of the most dangerous things you can put in your body. It increases people's weight. It causes inflammation. There's connections to cancer and fatty liver disease, liver stress, which makes sense because of what it's doing to copper in the liver and iron as well. It's also implicated in cholesterol levels. I mean, it's just like, it's all over the place. And so, I mean, that makes sense, right? With fatty liver, because of what it's doing to mineral dysregulation. It's also implicated in like heart disease, leaky gut, increased mercury intake, diabetes. I mean, it's really bad, really, really bad. And most of you guys know about this, right? I mean, I can share an article on this if you guys like. In fact, I probably should. I'll put a link to that article here. So there's gonna be a ton of links on today's show, extremehealthradio.com/704. So most of you guys know about high fructose corn syrup. It's not really very controversial. But then the other one is oxalic acid. And there's a lot of comments on the post. Oh, it's been proved that oxalic acid is not that harmful after all. And you don't know what you're talking about. And I got some direct messages, just super, super hateful. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like if I see something on Instagram or Facebook that's controversial, completely the opposite of what I think and believe and know to be true, it's like, I don't even comment. I just go, okay, here's another guy talking about, the benefits of fish oil, right? Big deal. I don't know what causes someone to like, oh no, I have to be a keyboard warrior. I have to, hit reply and say, you don't know what you're talking about, and then hit post, like, does that somehow give you more power? Does that make you feel better to like debate with people online? I don't understand how people's minds work. I just don't get it. I don't know how you have time to get into Facebook or Instagram debates about these things, but so anyway, oxalic acid could be found in leafy greens, spinach, kale, and so people were sending me direct messages like, "Oh, are you saying leafy greens are bad? Are you saying kale is bad? You don't know what you're talking about, blah blah blah." So you can just do the research and come up with your own opinions. Whatever you want to believe, it's fine with me. But it says here, once consumed, oxalate can bind to minerals to form compounds, including calcium oxalate, not good, right? Iron oxalate, not good. This mostly occurs in the colon, but can also take place in the kidneys and other parts of the urinary tract. So you think about kidney stones, right? Gallbladder stones, all that. So it's not good. Not good. Mostly leafy greens, vegetables, nuts and seeds, stuff like that is where oxalic acid can be found. And I just want to say too, that a lot of this is about context, right? Like I don't avoid all of these foods all of the time. Last night I had a salad, not as a main course, but I had some salad with my meal. And does it contain oxalic acid? Sure. It's about context and it's about the environment in which you eat. And so it's not that big a deal. I'm just saying, like, don't eat oxalate-rich foods all the time, right? As a staple for year after year after year. You know what I mean? It's going to cause problems. But to have some of this stuff every now and then, not a big deal, right? Like we have to make sure that we're not becoming orthorexic here. We have to make sure that we're not becoming so stringent on ourselves. I used to be like that. I was 100% raw food vegan from 2003 to 2010. 100% raw food vegan, and I was so anal about everything that I did. And it's not a good way to live. So now I just let up a little bit, right? Take your enzymes, take your vitamin E, take your shilajit, take your minerals, add some salt to your water and, some magnesium. You're going to be okay. All right. I'm just saying that in general, these things should be avoided. So the next one is colloidal silver. So this is like the real big issue because I got so much flack for saying this, that, oh no, colloidal silver, I use it for this, this, that, and the other. And, my parents swear by it and I healed from XYZ with it. You don't know what you're talking about. Someone said, I can't believe you have a microphone. Someone should take you off the air. It's like, dude, calm down. Okay. Just calm down. Right. We sell colloidal silver in our store and we use it. Okay. So, but what I'm saying is that colloidal silver, studies are showing that it impacts copper status. So a lot of this stuff is going to be based on the work of Morley Robbins. And I just want to say right now that after, what is this, almost 10 years of doing the radio show, 700 episodes, and being involved full time in this natural health field, reading books and doing research since 2003, I have to say the most important people, I think, in the natural health field are Morley Robbins on minerals, Dr. Ray Peat on metabolic function, and I disagree with both of them on a couple different things. It's okay. It's cool. They're great people. We're not going to agree with everyone. So you got Morley Robbins on minerals, Dr. Ray Peat with metabolic health, metabolic function, and stress and hormones. He is amazing. Follow his work, Dr. Ray Peat, Morley Robbins. And then two other people, I think. One is Dr. Jack Kruse, and I disagree with a lot of what he says. And I've he's very bombastic and sure of himself, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't relate too much to that side. But I love what he's taught me about light and really impacted my life about biohacking and altering your environment. His work is seminal and so critical, so critical. So the light aspect, the minerals, and the metabolic function, and with Dr. Ray Peat. And then the final person is my friend, Dr. Richard Massey. And he talks a lot about the emotion and spiritual causes to disease and our relationship to our family line. And he's having a major turnarounds in people. Okay, so these are the four. If you work on the emotional, spiritual causes of disease, you can almost not do anything else on the physical side. It's that important. But when you add into that the metabolic research of Dr. Ray Peat, all the biohacking and the light and the mitochondria research from Dr. Jack Kruse, and mixing it in with the mineral research that Morley Robbins has done, I don't think you can get a more important four foundations to your health than those four guys. So that's Morley Robbins, Dr. Jack Kruse, Dr. Ray Peat, and Dr. Richard Massey. And I feel like when you can combine all four of their work into your protocol, into your lifestyle, it's going to change your life. And just so you know, they all disagree with each other. I disagree with them. It's all good. I take the best of each one of those people and put it together. So a lot of this is going to be based on the work of Morley Robbins today. But I just want to let you guys know that when you work at these fundamental levels, you can radically change and alter your health. So colloidal silver, getting back to that, it has its place, okay? I'm not saying you should never use it. In fact, I'm saying you should buy some and have some on hand just in case. But just know what it does is it impacts copper status. So a little bit of information on copper, magnesium, and minerals and iron, and how all this sort of relates to your health. So basically, when it comes to our health, we need energy, okay? That's ATP created in the mitochondria, right? Each cell, we have trillions of cells in our body, and each cell has anywhere from a few hundred to a few, I think egg cells or sperm cells have like over 100,000 mitochondria, but generally like in the brain and the heart can have 3,000 or 4,000 mitochondria per cell, okay? So when we're dealing with health, we don't focus on the food, we focus on our mitochondria and how our environment impacts our mitochondria, and specifically how the mitochondria creates energy. Because if you are dealing with some sort of health condition, you need energy. You cut your skin, you fall, scrape your knee, you need energy. You want to digest your food, you need energy. You want your heart to beat when you're sleeping, you need to create ATP in your mitochondria. Energy is created in the mitochondria, so we need to focus on how we upregulate the mitochondrial function so that we can create energy. Once we have that energy, we can overcome the various toxins and diseases and different environmental issues like non-native EMF and blue light and, radiation from cell phones and poor food and chemicals and blah, blah, blah. It all requires energy to be able to resist that stuff. Okay. So let's focus on the internal environment. Like Dr. Cruz says, if a fish is sick, do you change its diet? Or do you change out the muddy, swampy water it's swimming in? So you always want to change the environment first, okay? It doesn't matter what kind of diet you eat. If you're in a terrible environment, that's going to impact your mitochondria's ability to make energy, okay? So fix your environment first. So this getting back to silver, what happens is that people will say, I'm copper toxic, right? I do a HCMA, I'm copper toxic and blah, blah, blah. So copper is a metal, okay? And so it needs to be loaded into a protein called ceruloplasmin. And this protein has 8 different copper enzymes attached to it. And what it does so many different things. Morley Robbins calls it the Rife machine in our body. So this is really, really critical. This protein, ceruloplasmin, is very critical for our health because one of its functions is that it allows copper to be loaded into it. Okay, so the analogy I like to give is like, let's say you're going to work, right? And your car breaks down, so you got to take the bus to work, right? So you're sitting at the bus stop waiting for work at 6 a.m. and you got all this work to do at your job, and that work that you're going to do is going to affect thousands of people, let's say. Okay, so you're sitting at the bus stop, you get on the bus, and you're going along, and then there's an accident, right? Bus tips over, everyone's, falls out all over the road, and so you can't get to work, right? You're injured, you can't get back on the bus, it's on fire, whatever. Okay, so think of that bus like ceruloplasmin, right? And think of you as copper, okay? And so in order for you to do your job, you got to get on that bus to go do your job, right? The end result is you going to work and doing whatever it was you're supposed to do that was going to impact thousands of people. But now you can't do that, okay? So not only that, but the bus tips over, it's on the road, and now you have a traffic accident. So the cops come, the bus is tipped over, traffic is backed up on the road for miles and miles and miles, impacting every other metabolic function that's supposed to be happening in the body. Now you have this whole big scene and ordeal with all these other downstream processes not able to function correctly because not just because of the accident, but because you're not at your desk doing your job too. So it's a downstream effect. And so what allows you to get on that bus as a copper molecule is retinol. And retinol is vitamin A. Not beta carotene from carrots, but retinol is only derived from animal foods. So it's my understanding that right now that retinol is the only thing that allows copper to get into that protein called ceruloplasmin so that the job that you're going to is to be able to reduce oxidation. And oxidation, there's this thing called the Fenton reaction. It goes into this whole science, but I won't bore you with that. But basically, when iron interacts with oxygen, you have oxidation. The problem is that we breathe oxygen. So we're constantly exposed to oxygen all day long, right? We need it to live, and we need to breathe oxygen and have it distributed throughout our body. But the problem is that when we're iron overloaded, all that oxygen we're bringing in, either through breathing or through therapies like MMS, DMSO, what else increases oxidation, hyperbaric oxygen tanks, all that kind of stuff. These are oxidative therapies, right? So the problem is that when you bring all that oxygen in and you combine it with an internal environment that's been consuming iron your whole life through the iron fortification program, through acid rain, liberating iron from the soils, you have all this iron coming in and a lack of copper, 80% depletion in copper since the 1950s in our soils, an increase in iron through acid rain. But on top of that, in 1941 and in 1969, there's an iron fortification project. Putting iron firelings into our food, that ferrous iron, terrible, 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 right? And you can search YouTube for that if you want to look at like cereal and iron in foods, and you can see that this cereal, reacts with magnets. It's crazy. But anyway, all that iron in our body is oxidizing, causing rust and calcification, and it's all manner. You can say that all disease is oxidative in nature. So you want to protect your ceruloplasmin protein right? So it's very important to make sure that you have retinol coming in and you have copper coming in as well, not from a supplement, but from food sources. You want to make sure you have those two things coming in so that ceruloplasmin can be made in the liver and elsewhere in the body so that it can store that copper so that that copper can go do its job like you going to work that day. And your job is to deal with all of that iron and oxidation that's happening on an ongoing basis every day. So you really want to make sure that ceruloplasmin is healthy and your copper levels are healthy and your retinol levels are abundant. So anything that upsets that ceruloplasmin protein, the bus, in my analogy, you want to make sure that you don't take things that impact that ceruloplasmin protein, okay? So it turns out the colloidal silver causes, like many other substances too, ceruloplasmin to leak out copper. And copper, I don't know if you know, or I'm sorry, silver, it sits below copper on the periodic table. So if you really want to do, if you really want to do silver, do nano silver. I haven't seen any research yet that nano silver has the same effects on ceruloplasmin. But that's not to say I use silver like the gels, you know, and if I feel like a cold coming on, I might nebulize some silver, you know, but I know what it's doing and I'm not doing it every day. So I just want you to know it's just all about context. Okay. So we're going to get into some super controversial stuff. So the next ones I have, I'm going to take a little break right now, but citric acid, had a lot of questions about that. Vitamin D. Oh my gosh, I have so much research on vitamin D, it's crazy. Fluoride, most people know the fluoride, but I've got some things to share. And then polyunsaturated fatty acids. And then we're going to get into the meat of it with iron, okay? Ascorbic acid, are you taking vitamin C? Are you taking lipospheric vitamin C? Are you taking zinc or calcium? So we're going to get into those in just a second. So like I said before, this is really controversial stuff, right? Really controversial stuff. So what I was just saying there about oxidation, molecular hydrogen has been used to reduce oxidation in the body. And let me play you a little clip with my friend Brian Hoyer. He's a great guy, an EMF specialist, and he's been to our home and he's worked with us to help reduce the amount of non-native EMF in our house. But anyway, here's a little clip talking about molecular hydrogen. I think you guys might find it interesting.
And then there's other mitigation strategies that I'm working on for outdoors, and there's different things you can do to mitigate some of the damage. You know, one of the things that Dr. Mercola recommends is molecular hydrogen, and that's actually been shown to basically mitigate 80% of the damage of free radical peroxynitrate, which stimulates those, which is created from the stimulation of those voltage-gated calcium ion channels. And so drinking molecular hydrogen when you're acutely exposed to those frequencies can help.
Yeah, so molecular hydrogen is an amazing substance. It sort of dances on the side of the spiritual and the physical. It's so tiny. It's the most base elemental substance of the entire universe. It's the most powerful antioxidant, primarily because its size. Like, it's so tiny. I think it's 400 times smaller than vitamin C, 700 times smaller than CoQ10. And because of that size, it's able to sort of permeate every cell in the body, but not just the cell, the DNA itself and the mitochondrial DNA. It's so tiny that it can get in there and repair the DNA. So that's amazing, right? And so talk about like vitamin C as an antioxidant. I mean, this is 100 times, 400 times smaller. So it can get places in the body to reduce oxidation that vitamin C just can't get to. There's over 1,000 studies on this from Tyler LeBaron over at the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. And one of its biggest claims to fame is that it reduces oxidation. And this is the same oxidation I'm talking about with iron and oxygen in the body. And so this AquaCure machine, we love it. Check it out. There's 10% off. It's kind of expensive. It's about $2,500, I think, but it's one of the best investments you can ever make in your health. It's been used for every ailment. I don't even want to say because it might get me in trouble, but there are multiple studies, and you can listen to the radio shows. We've done 2 now with George Wiseman and 1 with Tyler LeBaron the main guy behind the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. So this AquaCure is amazing. So what you do is you bubble the hydrogen into this water, and then you drink that water all day long. And you can also breathe it, which is what I do. I do both. But you can also take baths with it. There's little spot treatments things where if you're dealing with some, things with your eye, say your vision or something, there's goggles. You can do spot treatments if you have things going on your skin. There's a million different ways to use it, which is awesome. There's a lifetime warranty, and there's a 100% satisfaction guarantee. So this is an amazing, amazing machine, the AquaCure machine. I'll put links to it over at extremehealthradio.com/704. And then something else I want to share with you too. This is the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. This is my friend, my pal, the most amazing biological dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley at healthysmilesforlife.com. Love him. But here's what he had to say about detoxifying using a far infrared sauna.
What I chose to do? I chose to go very, very slow as I detox. So one of the things that I did is I invested in an infrared sauna, which was huge. That was a big, big part of my healing because, interestingly enough, many times patients who have heavy metal toxicity lose the ability to sweat. And so I was one of those. I could not break a sweat. And the infrared sauna helped me to retrain my body to be able to sweat. It was a huge part of my overall detox.
Doesn't Dr. Huggins say, as long as there's more going out than what's coming in, you're okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right on that.
Yeah, so Dr. Nunley was removing people's mercury fillings, they call them silver, but they're really mercury, for years and years without knowing. He didn't know any better at the time, and he eventually becomes so mercury toxic that he was almost diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's, I think. He was in a wheelchair, couldn't walk. I mean, he's a triathlete. And this was like, oh my gosh. And so one of his main things he used, like he just said, was sauna therapy. And just so you know, we're recording this June 28th, 2021. He talked about heavy metals there, and we're doing a heavy metal cleanse as a group inside our Extreme Health Academy. So 4 times a year, every 3 months, we do specific cleanses. And then we're also doing different things like, different little challenges and stuff like that we talk about. It's an amazing. So once a year, we do a parasite cleanse, a heavy metal cleanse, a liver cleanse, and a colon cleanse. And so we're starting July 1st with the colon cleanse. So if you guys want to join us, for that and go through that as a group for a 30-day cleanse for heavy metals, come and join us inside the Extreme Health Academy. Just want to let you guys know there's lots going on there. I'm live every Friday morning there as well, and Kate's live twice a month for the Women's Wellness Hour, and then Dr. Bergman's live once a month. It's a lot of live stuff going on and a lot of cool support, great people, thousands of people in there. So come and join us inside the Extreme Health Academy. But the Relax Far Infrared Sauna, highly recommend it. This is an amazing machine. Uses far infrared heat, very, very low EMF, a little bit of magnetic frequency coming up to about 12 inches away, and then it dissipates. Not a big deal at all. There's more magnetic frequencies coming off your blender or your walls than there is in this thing. And I use it, 3 or 4 times a week. And I've heard you can sweat out iron as well as other heavy metals. So this is a really great machine. Highly recommend it. Check them out, extremehealthradio.com/704. All right, so what else do we got? Okay, we just did colloidal silver. All right, so the next one is citric acid. So a lot of people wrote in upset that many of their supplements have citric acid in it. And the citrate molecule, it irritates the bowel. So it prevents this sufficient time, like with magnesium citrate. That's the one form of magnesium that you want to avoid. There's a few others too, but that one, it doesn't allow the magnesium to be absorbed properly. So there's a real big absorption issue, and it irritates the bowel. But what it also causes the ceruloplasmin ferrooxidase protein to do is it causes it to lose enzyme function. So without sufficient levels of this ceruloplasmin ferrooxidase enzymes functioning properly, without that, our bodies cannot oxidize the iron and load iron into hemoglobin, okay? So that the iron can be transported through the blood to where iron is needed and eventually taken back to the bone marrow, which is where iron goes, and it's called the iron recycling program. And once it gets back to the bone marrow, it makes new red blood cells, right? So the citrate molecule disrupts that whole process. And here's a link here on the mechanism of citrate inhibition of ceruloplasmin ferroxidase activity. And let me see if I can bring that up and let you guys know about this one. This is an interesting study. Ceruloplasmin is a plasma protein which oxidizes ferrous ions in a catalytic manner. It is considered to function as a ferroxidation in vivo. Citrate was found to inhibit this reaction. Okay, so anytime you have ceruloplasmin being inhibited, you have to stay away from substances that do that. So it's really important to make sure that that doesn't happen. All right, so here's another study here that I will share with you guys. Whoops. Going to bring this up here. This is another study about citric acid. Proof for the ascorbate oxidase activity on ceruloplasmin. This is a PDF. The Journal of Biological Chemistry, volume 239, 1964. So this is kind of stuff like, are people looking this deep? Are they reading these papers? I don't think so. Someone's doing this research, and you want to make sure that you're listening to people that are doing the research that don't have any financial ties to products they sell that counteracts that research, right? So it's really important to make sure that you're listening to the right people. And so the way I look at it is, let's say there's someone that you want to listen to that is a prominent health figure in the world. And these are criteria, not laws. And so what I look at is, are they selling products that are controversial products? Okay. So that's one. So that shows there's a financial tie. Nothing wrong with selling products, right? But if you're shown that that product is dangerous, are you willing to take a look at that information? If you don't sell those products and someone shows you information, all you have to do is swallow your pride and say, you know what, I was wrong. But if you sell the products, now you got to swallow your pride, say you're wrong, and stop selling the products and say you're wrong about the products too. And not a lot of people like to do that. But then too, I look at how busy and how that person earns their income. If they're like a conventional medical doctor, let's say, and they're seeing 50 patients a day, they have no time to research, right? So you got to look at how they're spending their time and how they're making their money. Some people, like Dr. Ray Peat and Morley Robbins, just spend their days researching all day long. I couldn't do that. I go crazy. You know, I have to work in the garden. I have to go, walk the dogs and go surfing. And, I can't do that all day. I don't want to do that. Okay, so here's vitamin D now. I got so much hate for this. Oh my gosh, the amount of hate I got for this vitamin D thing was just nuts. People writing me angry direct message. I'm just laughing thinking about some of these, right? And so I just want to let you guys know that I'm not the only one saying this, right? And a lot of people wrote in, cite your sources. I'm not going to believe you unless you cite sources. Other people I listen to will cite their sources, and rather than just put a list out, someone needs to deplatform you. You're playing with people's health and all this stuff, as if like I am playing with people's health. Like I want to do that, right? I'm here to help. I'm looking at research no one else is looking at. Well, other people are, but not a lot of other people are looking at this research. I want to present ideas that are going to help you. And so people just think that I don't know. It's very bizarre. I mean, Adam Bergstrom talks about this. Matt Blackburn talks about this. Jim Stevenson, who I believe is the world's foremost authority on vitamin D, talks about this. Morley Robbins, the mineral expert, talks about this. Dr. Trevor Marshall. I mean, so many people are talking about this vitamin D thing, but yet you'll never hear their voices because the main narrative, like I mentioned before, the alternative health mainstream narrative is that vitamin D is good for you. So what does it do? What's wrong with vitamin D? It's actually a hormone. It's a corticosteroid, according to Jim Stevenson. But it lowers vitamin A, for one. So remember what I talked about before. Vitamin A, aka retinol, true vitamin A from animal products, is what allows you to get on the bus, right? Imagine you're like crippled or something, right? You're sitting at the bus stop and you can't get on the bus. You need someone to put you on the bus. That's what vitamin A's job does. Vitamin A retinol allows copper to be loaded into ceruloplasmin, onto the bus analogy, right? So if you don't have any vitamin A, but you have tons of copper, you can't utilize it, right? So now, not only do you have tons of copper that you can't use to reduce the oxidation from iron and oxygen, But now that copper is known as unbound copper. So now that's going to cause problems because copper belongs in that protein, right? So now imagine thousands of people sitting at the bus stop waiting for the bus, but they can't get on. So now you have a problem there. You have a buildup right there of people sitting at the bus stop clogging up the sidewalk, right? Overflowing onto the street, being where they don't belong. This is what happens when you don't have retinol. And so vitamin D lowers vitamin A. So now you have this cascading process, right? Oxidation, unbound copper. And then the other thing it does is it causes hypercalcification, right? And there's a lot of studies talking about this. So I'm going to read a few things to you here, and I'll link up a bunch of studies if you guys want to check it out. But if you're not convinced, I honestly, I don't care to debate. It's not like I think that I'm right about this. I may be wrong, but I'm just showing you what I found. And if you want to send me some emails that are, show the opposite, I just want to find the truth. I don't sell vitamin D, so it doesn't matter to me. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. No big deal, right? But coming to where I am now, I really believe that these people are right on top of it, right? So the problem is it poses vitamin A, but it also causes hypercalcification. So you're going to cause mineral dysregulation all over the body, hypercalcification in your bones, depletion of calcium in your bones, massive amounts of calcification in other parts of your body where you don't want it, like your arteries and your veins, and stiffness everywhere. And we did a whole show on calcification. But suffice it to say, I'm going to read a few things here. Supplemental hormone D kills retinol and retinoic acid in our liver and in our eyes and elsewhere in the body, preventing it from being able to facilitate cellular regeneration, repair, and renewal, which leads to a weakening in bone strength and repair. So you see people that take lots of vitamin D, and you wonder, how strong are your bones? Do you have osteoporosis? Do you have vision issues, right? Vitamin D sensitizes breast cancer cells to the action of H2O2 and mitochondria as a convergence point in the death pathway. This is a study from PubMed. So I'll share that as well. Tufts University confirms that vitamin A protects against vitamin D toxicity by curbing excess production of vitamin K dependent proteins. So that was from my buddy Chris Masterjohn. Tufts University confirms that vitamin D. So a lot of people wrote in and said, you don't know what you're doing. It's really important. If you're going to take vitamin D, you got to take vitamin K with it. And so vitamin K reduces the amount of oxidation. And vitamin K does a ton of different things in the body, and we did a whole show on it. But if you're going to take vitamin D, take vitamin K, because vitamin D is going to damage you, right? So at least take the vitamin K to reverse the damage or mitigate some of that damage that vitamin D is doing. So you're not getting any of the benefits of vitamin K if you're taking vitamin D with it. It makes no sense. Here's another quote. Even modest amounts of vitamin D, whether provided by UV light or in the diet, decrease liver stores of vitamin A. This is what I said before, right? So when the doses of D are larger, they decrease plasma levels of A as well. And this suggests that vitamin D increases the need for and turnover of vitamin A. Again, no vitamin A, aka retinol, no copper going into that bus, right? And then you have massive amounts of oxidation occurring as a result of the iron fortification program. And your body's inability to create certain key enzymes that allow iron to go back to the red blood cells. So then iron gets stored in your tissues, oxidizing. And that's why we ran that ad a couple minutes ago about the AquaCure, helps reduce oxidation, right? So in other words, hormone D lowers retinol in the liver and in the blood, and hormone D increases the production or prevalence of H2O2, which you don't want, right? That's that oxygen. So here's a study that says here, magnesium, vitamin D status, and mortality. Results from U.S. National Health and Nutritional Examination Study 2001 to 2006. And let me bring this up here really quick so I can take a look at it while I'm talking to you. But this is the kind of stuff, guys, that it's really important. When you're ingesting a metal or a hormone, just be really, really careful. And that, we're going to talk about molybdenum. I can't say that. Molybdenum, I think is how you say it. Copper, right? Let's see what else. Hormones like melatonin, vitamin D is a corticosteroid. It's a hormone. When you're ingesting metals or hormones, you got to be really careful. Not saying not to, but I'm just saying just do your research before you take these things willy-nilly. So this is a study. Magnesium plays an essential role in the synthesis and metabolism of vitamin D, and magnesium supplementation substantially reversed the resistance to vitamin D treatments in patients with magnesium-dependent vitamin D resistant rickets. So this is just like on and on and on, these studies. I mean, it's crazy. Let's see, here's one here. Inflammation and vitamin D, the infection connection. That's another PubMed article. I'll pull this stuff. And you may be asking yourself, like, why doesn't my doctor know this, right? Like, how come my doctor, he's a super smart guy. How come he doesn't know this? Well, I mean, this stuff is out there, but the problem, it's like we're going to talk about fish oils. People are searching, is fish oil healthy? Benefits of fish oil. Where best sources of fish oil, and you need to search acrolein, liver spots, lipofuscin, lipid peroxidation. You need to search these other terms because you're never going to get, there's a lot of money going into this, vitamin D and fish oil world. So inflammation is believed to be a contributing factor to many chronic diseases. Inflammation is believed to be a contributing factor. In fact, it is. It could be the cause of all disease. The influence of vitamin D deficiency on inflammation is being explored, but studies have not demonstrated a causative effect. So it goes into that the testing, the 25D, which is the storage, and then the active, which is the 125. And so there's a correlation between those two, and you want to make sure that you're getting 125 tested if you can, and 25. Here's another one here. It says vitamin D is a regulator of endothelial nitric oxide synthase and arterial stiffness in mice. Repeated supplementation with hormone D appears to contribute to the oft-declared diagnosis of anemia that is overtaking the metabolic landscapes of patients worldwide. That's from Gunther Weiss. Renal potassium wasting induced by vitamin D. That's another study. Renal potassium wasting induced by vitamin D. Vitamin D supplements cause ATP depletion and iron-mediated attacks. Again, this appears to be a little-known effect of hormone D supplements, but the impact to the optimal metabolic function is stunning, especially in our kidney tissue. Here we go. Calcitriol directly sensitizes renal tubular cells to ATP depletion and iron-mediated attack, another PubMed study from 1999. Vitamin D destroys vitamin A reserves. The role of fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A and D, in the pathogenesis of influenza, a brand new perspective. So these are all studies that are out there, guys. And yet people are telling me, what are your sources? My doctor told me to put on. So you guys, you have to, I can't stress enough. I don't have all the answers. Adam Bergstrom doesn't. Jim Stevenson doesn't. Morley Robbins doesn't. Dr. Ray Peat doesn't. Matt Blackburn doesn't. Dr. Marshall doesn't. No one has all the answers. We're all just trying to figure this thing out and get to the information that's out there, okay? So your doctor doesn't have all the answers. He just doesn't. And you have to know that, okay? So it's really important to do your research and stop outsourcing your health to a doctor, because you're no better than someone else in the mainstream who says, oh, my doctor tells me to take, Zantac or whatever other drug, Lipitor, right? Be your own doctor. I can't stress that enough. Do your own research. Stop listening to me. Stop listening to everyone and look at the studies, read the books, come to your own conclusions, and do your own research. So just because your doctor, your natural doctor, doesn't know this stuff, doesn't mean they're a bad guy either. It doesn't mean you should not listen to them about other things. But just everything is just information, right? If he says 10 things and 9 of them are true and 1's false, just go with the 9 and there you go. No big deal. So that vitamin D is a really, really big issue. And we're going to do more shows with Jim Stevenson. We have a whole episode at extremehealthradio.com/695. And if you follow us on Instagram, in our bio, we have a link to that, as well as all the shows that we've done on fish oil and polyunsaturated fatty acids. So make sure to check those out. So the next one here is fluoride. All right. So most of you guys know fluoride's bad for you. This isn't that controversial to people in the natural world. In the mainstream world, people still think fluoride's good for you. Dentists are completely out to lunch. Dentists have no idea. You know, they try to debate you about all this stuff. But we did a whole show on on fluoride when we first started, I think back in 2012. But as a gas, fluorine is the most reactive and electronegative of all the elements, and it refers to any compound in nature that it contains the fluorine ion, okay? So the chemical symbol is just F, and it has an atomic number of 9. And so the problem is it could cause damage to the brain and mainly the central nervous system, right? It's been associated with cancer. It could increase risks of bone fractures, osteoporosis, that kind of thing, hypothyroidism. So if you have that, you could be just simply fluoride toxic, right? What else does it do? Has impact on your sex drive and hormones, right? And hormones are everything, right? Hormones are everything. Impacts your thyroid negatively. It's associated with diabetes. And most of the fluoride's coming in the form of bottled water and our municipal tap waters. So you got to make sure that you're filtering your waters. And if you're looking for a place to start with filters, we have them in our store, biochargeme.com. But start with the water you bathe in first, because you absorb more water through your skin, which is your largest organ, than you do the water you drink. So make sure you start with a good shower filter, and we have those on our store as well, biochargeme.com, and a good filter for your bath as well. And we have both those available there if you guys want to get the best ones. But it's also in food, like, you know, I know canned tomatoes have lots of it. A lot of fruit juices have it too. I think it's like canned carrots and white potatoes can have some, and canned corn and canned sauerkraut, dill pickles, these types of things. Oh, and sodas too. Right? I don't want to say brand names, but sodas can have it. Boxed cereals can have it. And obviously it's in toothpaste and mouthwash and stuff like that. And, varnishes, like certain paints, and a lot of supplements too can have it. So it's really important to make sure. And medications too. A lot of, that fluorine molecules in a lot of different medications. So you want to make sure, and it's in mouthwash too, something most people don't know. Okay, so fluoride, most of you guys know, not good, right? So that's not very controversial. But here's one that's really bad. PUfAS, polyunsaturated fatty acids, right? And so PUfAS are any fat. So lipids are something that you have to really, really be careful of. The type of fat that you consume is really, really important, and cook with. So basically, it's just to keep it simple, it's any fat that is liquid at room temperature, around 70 degrees. That's going to be a polyunsaturated fat. So, but there's context and nuance to it as well. Like olive oil can have a little bit less than something like canola oil, for example. And olive oil is liquid at room temperature. But basically, the saturated fats are going to be healthier for you, because when you look at like certain polyunsaturated fatty acids, if they're coming from something like salmon, right, a fish, and that fish is swimming around, and if it were saturated fat, that fat in the fish's tissues would turn to stone. It would make that fish unable to swim. It would sink, because it would just basically stiffen up, right? Like you look at, like if you put some ghee or something into the refrigerator, it's super solid, right? So we have a fish swimming in cold water like salmon. It needs to be able to have a fat in there that's polyunsaturated, right? So that's liquid, so that it can help the fish live and not be saturated and turn hard in the cold water. So that's kind of how you know. But that includes most seed oils, canola oil, oh gosh, all the different oils that are out there, avocado oil, like even coconut oil can have some PUfAS as well as egg yolks. I mean, there's PUfAS in everything. So you just really want to work on mitigating that. And so for me, I lived on a diet of seeds for 8 years and nuts and almond butter and all that kind of stuff. I'm thankful I never took fish oil, though. Thank God. I'm so thankful. But there's things you can do to detoxify that out of your body, but I'm just really glad that I never did that. And so these polyunsaturated fatty acids, what they do is people say, oh, well, it's cold processed, right? It's pristine, it's organic, it's processed in a cold environment. They never heat it, right? Okay, so then you have this oil that's been extracted in this really pristine manner. What happens when you put that oil into a tropical 98.6 degree body? It turns rancid and it oxidizes. So it doesn't matter if it's cold processed. It doesn't matter if it's organic. I mean, I guess it does to some degree, but your body's tropical and your body's warm. And so that fat is going to oxidize immediately, especially when you're loaded up with iron and oxidation from breathing oxygen, right? So it's going to cause a real problem. So a lot of people are saying like, gosh, what was her name? Dr. Kayla Daniels has written a whole book on cod liver oil, for example. And let's see, that guy, Dr. Ron's, he was eating lots of cod liver oil as well. And Ramil Nagel, who was on our show, both of those guys passed away. And many people think it was due to the excessive amounts of cod liver oil they were consuming because it was causing all kinds of oxidation in their body. And so, I mean, this is real dangerous stuff that we have to make sure that we're careful about how we're consuming this stuff. And so we've done a number of shows on fish oils, and I'll put a link for that. Let's see. In our bio on Extreme Health Radio Instagram. So we have a Dr. Kayla Daniels report on cod liver oil. We have Morley Robbins and Adam Bergstrom's debate about cod liver oil. That was interesting. Adam Bergstrom's fish oil and omega-3s are poisons. Adam Bergstrom's show cod liver oil, fish oil, and omega-3s are toxic and deadly. Adam Bergstrom's written 12 books on this subject alone. So people want to say, oh, fish oil, Dr. Rhonda Patrick says fish oil is the best thing ever and we need to be eating it and blah, blah, blah. Okay. You just search out, and the mainstream alternative health world is going to tell you fish oil is really healthy, really, really good for you. But I'm telling you to do some deeper research. Here's another show, Adam Bergstrom, The Dangers of DHA. Brian Peskin, Professor Brian Peskin, Why Taking Fish Oil Causes Cancer and Heart Disease. Adam Bergstrom's 12 books on yellow fat disease. Here's an article from Dr. Ray Peat, The Great Fish Oil Experiment. Another article from Dr. Ray Peat, Fats and Degeneration. Another article with Dr. Ray Peat called Unsaturated Vegetable Oils Toxic. Matt Blackburn's show, Why Fish Oil and Omega-3 Suffocates the Cell, Ages You, and What to Focus on Instead. And here's another show with Matt, The Hidden Dangers of Lipofuscin and What You Can Do About It. So these are called PUfAS, P-U-F-A-S, polyunsaturated fatty acids. So we've done a number of different shows, and I'll put a link to that article with all those links. I mean, this is just like endless amounts of information. And you can get, like, people will say to me, well, cite your sources, cite your sources. That's not my job. I'm not here to convince you of anything. If you think I don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. I don't care. That's fine. Do whatever you want to do. But if you want research, look at the sources I'm giving you and go do your own research. Go down those rabbit trails. So, that's all I can do. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to get into any debates. I honestly don't even care if you take fish oils, whatever, that's fine. I really don't care. But if you really want to get to the heart of what's causing disease, I want to help people. And I want to help people who are open-minded and saying, you know what, I've looked at that research. I was taking fish oil for this long, years and years. I got off of it and I started to get better. I get emails like that all the time. So I want to help people who are open-minded and are willing to look at the research and to dive in a little bit and do some digging in those rabbit trails. So that is called, let me take a look here in our Instagram bio. Oops. Let me see. I think that is the link. We have like 6 or 7 links on the Instagram bio, but that one is called, whoops. That one is called, I think, The Dangers of PUfAS. Yeah, The Dangers of PUfAS. That's the last link on our Instagram bio, right above or right below the truth about vitamin D. So I realize this is very controversial and this is really non-mainstream. And I just invite you guys to do your own research. Okay. So like I'm saying, if I come across other research, I'm more than happy to change my mind, because I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong. It's no big deal. Like I really don't care. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right things for my own health. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're not buying into any dogma and you're willing to look at new information. And you know what, too? Here's my thing, is willing to forgive those people that you follow, that you love, that don't know this information, and then forgive yourself for buying into their stuff for so long. That's the real heart of it, right? Because you love people. You're like, I love listening to this guy. I love listening to that guy. But he doesn't know the first thing about mineral dysregulation and ceruloplasmin and mitochondria and how light impacts our health. But I love everything else he says. And that's okay. We're all trying to figure this out, right? We're all on our own journey. And you know what? For me, I just have to say, you know what? I forgive myself for buying into the lie that I have to have a health guru. I'm sorry to myself for that, because I am supposed to be my health guru. Everyone else just presents information and I do what works for me with that information, right? So we have a couple more to get through. I think you're going to like the piece on iron, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, zinc, molybdenum, and calcium. So those are a couple more we're going to get into. And I think you're going to be interested in iron, because a lot of people message me very, very upset about about iron. It's like people were, my doctor had me on iron. My pediatrician said that, or my OBGYN said that I need to be on iron supplements and during my pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. So we'll tackle all of that good stuff when we come back from the break. But I want to share with you this cool little product about mitigating dirty electricity in your walls. Check this out.
Dirty electricity, what that does and what it is actually, for people that aren't aware, is when the power company is generating electricity and sending it to you, they don't have a constantly perfect, steady supply of 120 volt, 60 hertz electricity pulsing to you perfectly every time. It fluctuates quite a bit, and if you put meters on it, you can see it'll fluctuate. And so that fluctuation, and there are micro fluctuations as well, and those micro fluctuations, all that fluctuation creates these pulses in the wiring that will create EMF pulses around you. I mean, the wires themselves, when electricity is flowing through them, that will create a field around the wires that can affect you. But then when you've got all that little pulsing and micro pulsing going on, it's creating these frequencies of fields that are pulsing and affecting you negatively. And so those devices like the GreenWave, they will act like an inductor and smooth that signal out so you don't get that pulsing. And then my devices, because of the scalar fields, they will structure the EMF coming off of the wires in your house and everything else as well. I use those. I use Stetzer filters and GreenWave. I got both.
Something I don't talk about very often is these amazing rest shield that Ken Rolla has on his site. And he's been kind enough to allow us to sell them on our store, biochargeme.com. But he just mentioned the scalar fields, and check out the rest shield on biochargeme.com. I think we have one and we just love that thing. And anyway, so what he's talking about here is these little devices you can get for $30. And we just bought another one now. And so what we do is we just basically are collecting these things. And so you don't lose a plug on it. So what you do is you just plug it into your wall, and there's a plug on the bottom of it, so you don't lose one of your two plugs. And The dirty electricity in your walls, what it does is it produces these electric and magnetic fields perpendicular to the wall. And what they do is cause this chaos that's happening inside your body. And so we had Professor Martin Paul on the show, and he was talking about the cell membrane, the voltage gated calcium ion channel of the cell. And these dirty electricity fields, these magnetic and electric frequencies, break down the cell membrane. If you believe in a cell membrane, that's up for you and Adam Bergstrom to debate. But for lack of a better term, it depletes your cell membrane. So whatever it's doing, it's breaking that down and allowing calcium that's in your blood to get into the cell at 1,000 times the amount it's supposed to. And what this is doing is causing hypercalcification all over the body. Calcium is doesn't belong inside the cell like that. And Magda Havas was on a show years ago talking about blood sugar imbalances and what it's doing to the sugar levels in the body. I mean, affecting diabetes and cancer and all kinds of stuff like that. So what you can do with these filters is just put them around your house. So you put them in your kid's bedroom, you put them in your bedroom where you sleep for $30. I mean, this is a great investment. And just kind of buy, if you want to buy a ton of them for your whole house, you can do that. You can buy one at a time. But go to our store, biochargeme.com, and grab some of these things. I'm telling you guys, it's one of the best things you can do for your house. One of the best things you can do for your health. It's a great investment, $30. And, definitely put them where your kids sleep and where you sleep and where you work. And then you can get more over time. But just grab 2 or 3 and put them around wherever you can. I don't know if we have a discount on those or not. Typically, most of the products we have in our store, biochargeme.com, we do have discount codes, but I'm not sure about that. One other thing I want to tell you about, too, is aloe vera. Check this out. Pretty cool stuff.
And then I encourage, we can talk more about this. What do I do to help people speed up the healing of leaky gut?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned aloe before,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of the herbs that I definitely recommend, using for helping to heal leaky gut. You want to use herbs that are anti-inflammatory and soothing and healing to the intestinal lining. So aloe is a great one.
Aloe is like something we should all be on a regular basis. This stuff is so good. So the most ideal situation is you grow your own aloe. But if you can't do that, you can get it at the store. But typically with the aloe vera that you get at the store, it's got all kinds of other excipients and different compounds in there that you just don't want. And not only that, it's not raw either. So Stockton Aloe One, I don't talk about this enough, and it's such a great product. They ship it to you frozen. And I think they only ship on like Fridays or something like that, or twice a week, because they want to make sure it gets to you still frozen. But it basically has over 75 different compounds. So if you're looking to really increase your gut motility and the strength of the connective tissue in your gut, and improve your digestion, it's loaded with vitamins and enzymes, amino acids, minerals, ormus and polysaccharides, and it's really great for wound healing too. So imagine you putting aloe on your wound on the outside of your body, but imagine drinking this amazing gel-like substance coming directly and just soothing the inside of your gut. So like gelatin, colostrum, aloe, and some different minerals and like slippery elm and things like that doing for your gut would be so helpful. What I like about the Stockton Aloe One is that it's unfiltered. So they're not adding stuff to it. They don't process it. They're not heating it. There's no preservatives in it. They hand harvest it, and since they don't cook it, it's raw. There's no chemicals in it, and they ship it right after they harvest it. I mean, this is an amazing thing. The founder of the company, he lived till he was 96 years old, and of course, he credited his long life to the daily consumption of aloe vera. I don't know if you can prove that, but you can get it, and they ship it to you frozen, and you can take like a therapeutic dose, or a maintenance dose, I should say, is 1 to 8 ounces a day. And a therapeutic dose would be like 24 ounces a day. I haven't gotten there yet, but 1 to 8 ounces a day is just a great tonic for improving digestion. And you can get this on our store, biochargeme.com, and there may be links to it. And as always, I'll put links to everything that we talk about, all the studies and all that, at extremehealthradio.com/704. All right, so let's get on to iron. People are on iron supplements and they're wondering why they're sick. We don't need any more iron, okay? So with iron, there's like heme and non-heme iron. Heme is mostly like the meat, animal-based. It's in poultry and fish, and non-heme is more the plant-based irons. And so the ferrous iron, there's ferric and ferrous iron. I always remember because that movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's spelled differently, but I just remember ferrous is the bad iron. And in that show, or in that movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is a great movie, Ferris is like the villain from the establishment, right? He's the one ditching school and all that. So he's the bad guy. Not really, but in the movie, he's like ditching school and stuff. So ferrous iron, like him in that movie, ferrous iron is the bad iron. And so what happens is that it loses an electron. So when it's converting to ferric iron, it loses one of those electrons. And that causes us like instability. And so apart from like ferrous losing that electron and acting as an electron donor, it's a catalyst in the Fenton reaction. So that's a whole different thing that you can look into, the Fenton reaction, which is basically the interaction between ferrous iron, and oxygen, and what that does in the body. And that's really, really damaging an oxidative process. And so what's really the difference between ferric and ferrous? So the difference between ferric and ferrous iron is that the ferric iron is in a +3 oxidation state. So the ferrous iron, like Ferris Bueller, that's in a +2 oxidation state. Okay, so this means that the ferric iron needs to share 3 of these electrons with an oxygen molecule to make the ion neutral, while the ferrous iron, it only needs 2 or more electrons. And so with the addition of oxygen into the equation, the ferrous ion can easily become ferric ion, a ferric iron. So the problem is that they've been introducing this iron filings into our food supply. Started in 1941, and then they were going to, I think, triple or quadruple it, but they ended up being nice to us and only doubling it in 1969. So this iron is being added to our food, okay? So look at the people and the health prior to 1941. Really, the real health problem started in 1879 when the electrical grid came out and the light bulb was invented and people started living in electrically dense areas, and the grid came online and we became electrified. That's when the real diseases start. But then it just catapulted again in 1941 when we started adding iron into our food supply. And so anyway, we have this iron in many, many plant foods, right? So adding iron into our food, fortified with iron, right? Because you need iron. Fortified with vitamin D, right? They're killing you. And so they're adding iron to our food, which is terrible. But then the other problem is that through acid rain and the hydrological cycle and the pollution in our air, the rain that's falling on the earth is so acidic in nature that when it hits the soils, it's liberating tons of iron from the soil that gets into the plant food. So you have artificial iron being added to the food supply, and then you have food grown with tap water, municipal water, rainwater, that's all liberating iron from the soils. And then you combine those two things with an 80% reduction in copper since 1950, and you can see why people are sick. And you go to your doctor, hey, how come cancer rates, if you're born after 1960, there's a 1 out of 2 cancer rate. When before that, it was 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 2 men. How come cancer is so rampant in our society? Oh, I don't know. Doctor told me once it's more advanced testing. Yeah, our tests are just better, right? Guy doesn't have a clue. Does he understand the Fenton reaction? Does he understand the electrification of our grid system and what that's doing to the cell membrane? These guys have no clue. So that's why I'm saying, don't go to your doctor. They're going to make you sick. They're going to put you on medications and destroy your health. So anyway, this iron that's coming into our bodies, we only need 1 milligram ingestion of iron per day. And so we have this iron recycling program that's happening inside our body where through a series of specific enzymes, the iron is supposed to carry out key metabolic functions and then eventually go back to the bone marrow to create new red blood cells and other types of cells as well. And we have this recycling system. It's called the reticuloendothelial system or something like that. It's just a fancy word that Morley says. It's the iron recycling system, okay? So we have to have that working. So what happens is we have all this iron in our body. I think we have, like, if you take your age and you multiply it by 5,000. So what am I, 45 times 5,000? No. I forget. Anyway, I have 16,000 milligrams of iron in my body, and I'm only supposed to have 5,000. I think a woman's supposed to have like 4,000, 3,000, something like that. And so anyway, you have all this iron in your body, and not only can it not go back to the bone marrow to make new red blood cells, but it's getting stuck in your tissues. And then once it gets stuck in your tissues, it's combining with polyunsaturated fatty acids, estrogens, heavy metals, hormones, and basically oxidizing. That's why you get stiff. That's why you get calcification. That's why organs shrink over time. And once they shrink, they don't work properly. You have all these things happening as a result of iron getting stuck in the tissues where it doesn't belong. It can't get back to where it's supposed to get back to. And not only that, since it can't do that, it can't carry out its function harnessing oxygen properly because we don't have any copper. And so if you're on iron right now, I would definitely do some research and get off that stuff. All right. So here's the other thing, ascorbic acid. My doctor told me to take ascorbic acid, right? My doctor said that, ascorbic acid is healthy. You know, we had a guest on a long time ago talking about how there's no difference between ascorbic acid and vitamin C. And it's like, what? You know, at the time I didn't know any better, but it's like, what? No difference between ascorbic acid and vitamin C. Whole food vitamin C contains not just ascorbic acid, but also like rutin, bioflavonoids, P factors, J factors, K factors, ascorbigens, and tyrosinase. You know, that enzyme, helps bioavailable copper to work. It initiates the oxidation of the amino acid tyrosine into melanin. I mean, this is like huge stuff, right? Tyrosinase deficiency is a root cause of graying hair. Rutin, which is a bioflavonoid in whole food vitamin C, attaches to iron and prevents it from binding to hydrogen peroxide. And that's what we get back to, that Fenton reaction. It's also neuroprotective, hepatic protective, antihypertensive, anti-varicose veins. It's an internal sunscreen. It's an immunomodulator. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Man, oh man, oh man. People just don't know. People just don't know. So you want to make sure you're taking the whole food form of vitamin C, not ascorbic acid. Now, again, this is context. If I'm on death's door, what did Dr. Frederick Klenner do in the 1930s? He brought kids back from the dead using ascorbic acid, IV vitamin C. Now, if I were having some reaction to something and I was on death's door, I would do high-dose IV vitamin C and deal with the impact it does on ceruloplasmin later, you know? Again, it's context with this stuff, right? Don't get too crazy with this stuff. But apparently, ascorbic acid causes that. You ever see those amino acids like L-glutamine and things like that? Well, that L stands for left, according to my research. I may be wrong on that, but what happens is that these proteins fold in a particular way, and it's very important that the proteins fold correctly. It's like folding a shirt, right? So when proteins don't fold right, you get amino acids that aren't forming right, and then you get cells that aren't operating correctly, right? And then function doesn't happen as a result of that. And so what's happening with this like V going around right now, the injection, it's causing these prions to go into the brain and misfold. And so when prions do that, when they attach to other proteins that are misfolded, they cause that one to misfold as well. And then you have basically a mush. And this is what these prions are occurring in people's brains. It's mad cow disease. And so it's very important that proteins fold correctly. And so apparently ascorbic acid causes the ceruloplasmin protein to fold to the right and not to the left. And when it does that, copper leaks out. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're protecting that ceruloplasmin protein. So make sure that if you take vitamin C, just do whole food form of vitamin C. All right, a couple more left, and we're going to take off. Zinc. Oh, zinc. Everyone loves to take zinc, but it depletes both copper and ceruloplasmin. Okay, so it activates lipooxygenase enzymes that break down the cell membrane. Okay, so lipooxygenase impacts other oxidase enzyme activities in the body. So, like, for example, lysyl oxidase. Morley talks about this one a lot. Lysyl oxidase. It's critical for connective tissue, including blood. So that's why, like for example, lysyl oxidase, you want to make sure your levels are high on that, along with MSM possibly, or gelatin. So you're creating silica, strong, healthy connective tissue, right? So here's a study here that says an iron export ferroxidase activity of the B-amyloid protein precursor is inhibited by zinc in Alzheimer's disease. So it says here, take stock of the added significance of this study by noting that zinc inhibits the ferroxidase activity of this critical brain tissue antioxidant. This is consistent with other studies that have proven that zinc zaps ferroxidase function, which we have examined in prior posts. Please do not use zinc supplements under any circumstances. If your ultimate objective is to increase the level and functionality of your ferroxidase enzymes, you can get zinc from your diet. Just don't get it from a bottle. So make sure that you're not doing too much zinc. Okay, here's molybdenum. Is that right? How do you say it? MOLYBDENUM. Molybdenum. It's element 42, and its chemical signal or symbol is MO. It's considered to be a metallic element, so be very careful about these metallic elements. Iron, copper, silver. These are all metallic elements, right? People typically take this for like sulfur sensitivities or chemical sensitivities, and a lot of people pushing back on that in our direct messages on Instagram. But it carries out vital enzyme-related processes, helps to metabolize iron as well as prevent the accumulation of harmful substance. It's specifically known to function as a cofactor for 4 important enzymes, including sulfite oxidase, xanthine oxidase, aldehyde oxidase, and mitochondrial aminodeoxime reducing component, MARC. So molybdenum, in my understanding, does the same thing as ascorbic acid, which causes ceruloplasmin to leak copper. And this is causing a cascade of issues that we talked about before. So make sure that you're not taking that. And last and not least, calcium. So we did a whole show with Matt Blackburn, and we also did a show with, what's his name? Dr. William Wong on calcium as well. But for millions of years, our calcium to magnesium ratios were like 1-to-1. And I don't know what happened, but in the last 100 years, it's like 4 or 5-to-1 now. So we're increasing our calcium and decreasing our magnesium, which is the exact opposite of what we want. And so people think, I'm taking calcium for my bones, right? I need, that's like saying cholesterol is in your arteries, so cholesterol is what causes heart attacks. Just because there's firemen at the scene of a fire doesn't mean they caused the fire. Silica and magnesium are much more important through biological transmutation to create strong, healthy bones than calcium. In fact, it takes like 18 different nutrients. Last I read, something like 18 or 19 different nutrients, including magnesium, by the way, to make a strong bone matrix. So it's really important to realize it's not just calcium for bones. That's what they want you to believe. Calcification is a real issue. And if we're not utilizing calcium properly, like an ionic form of calcium, but then too, like from milk is, from dairy, it's an ionic form of calcium. It's usable. But if you're getting like calcium from the store that's, some tablet, that's going to be damaging to your tissues, very damaging to your arteries and to your bones as well. So what's weird is that like we're just swimming in the consumption of dietary and calcium supplements, right? But what's crazy about that is that like the rate of being diagnosed for osteoporosis in America during like in the early 80s, mid 80s to mid 90s, like 84, I think it was, to 93 or 4, the rates of osteoporosis in that time grew 700%. But why? If we're taking all this calcium, how come? Probably because people are taking inabsorbable forms of calcium and massive amounts of vitamin D, right? And living under, electrified cages, causing calcium to enter into the cells, which is what we talked about, that GreenWave, right? Limiting the amount of non-native EMF that we're exposed to so it doesn't open up the voltage-gated calcium ion channels of the cell, allowing calcium to go inside where it doesn't belong. So most of the supplements are calcium carbonate, which you guys probably already know. But really, that requires like 10 to 12 steps to metabolize those things into a form that we can actually use. So there's so much going on that requires the absorption and use of these substances that people don't know about. So most people don't have the mineral reserves to allow for all of that enzymatic, function to happen. So it's just like amazing that people don't do any research and take all the wrong things, right? Calcium is like cement, right? You want your bones to be like bamboo. You don't want them to be like concrete, right? And your connective tissue as well. You want to be strong, but you're able to bend. Bend without breaking. So here's a study here that says oxalate ions and calcium oxalate crystals stimulate MCP1 expression in renal epithelial cells. Kidney-international.com, and here's a PDF for that. But so it's crazy. So you want to make sure that you're not doing this calcium and making sure that you're eating the right substances. So those 14 substances are, again, I could have put like MSG on here, glyphosate, stuff like that. I could have added more to it, but most of this stuff, like lectins, phytic acid, high fructose corn syrup, oxalic acid, colloidal silver. Some of the more controversial ones are the colloidal silver, the citric acid, the vitamin D. Fluoride is not very controversial, but the omega-3s and DHA, fish oils, canola oil, stuff like that. Iron and ascorbic acid, zinc and calcium are pretty controversial. So those are all the substances that you should avoid. And again, my intention here is not to convince you of anything. My intention is to open you up to some research that you may have never heard of before. And then I'll put all the links in today's show, and you can take a look at this. But here's a couple comments I got. This is like the more tame ones. I should read to you the direct messages. Oh my God. Someone says, Sunny52 says, this is news to me. Dr. Bergman has previously and relatively recently recommended supplementing with omega-3 fish oils for pain and for autism, among other conditions. Now I'm thoroughly confused. So the thing about this is that fish oils do have a mechanism of action. I'm not saying that they don't. But Dr. Pete was saying that's about a 60-day window. And then it starts having the opposite effect. And so could this help? Could fish oils help someone for 60 days? Maybe. You know what? If I were getting surgery, I might consider it, super anti-inflammatory. I might consider it, for a couple days after surgery. It's context again, And what I'm saying is that, all of us have different opinions and all of us have different research we're looking at, right? So your job is to take what I say, take what someone else says, and try to put it together, okay? So here's Melody Champion says, would a veggie omega supplement that contains no fish be the same thing, meaning a no-go? So a veggie omega supplement is typically going to be like an algae-based supplement like spirulina or DHA, something like that. And that, in my opinion, definitely no-go. Definitely not. See, we've been sold that these are essential fatty acids, right? They're essential because the body can't make them. Not only that, but your body needs them, right? And this is the lie that we've been told over and over and over again. But the question is, you're assuming that to be true. You're assuming that they're essential. And so, how do I get my essential vitamins then if I can't get them from fish oil? So what I'm saying is that question the premise, question the entire thing first. Are they essential? Or do we need them? That's the real answer. That's the real test. So this person says, stop taking vitamin D? You're kidding me, right? When people comment like that, it's just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you, okay? Okay, then keep taking vitamin D. I don't care if you want to take vitamin D. Take it. I want to help people that are willing to make some changes and look at research. Okay. This person says, what about my kids? This is Abel, I forget, on Instagram. My son has sensory issues and possibly on the spectrum, never vaxxed to be that, and told omega needed for brain development. Any suggestions? Yeah. So they always say that vitamin or fish oils needed for the brain, right? Just because they're found there doesn't mean that that's what you need to take, right? There's this thing called biological transmutation. Same thing goes with calcium. Same thing goes with cholesterol. Just because cholesterol is there doesn't mean it causes a heart attack. Just because they open someone up and find calcium in the bones means that that's what the body used to create the bones in the first place. So just because omega-3 fats are found in the brain doesn't mean that they are necessary for proper brain development and neural function. So I would healthy fats. Go back to the Weston A. Price stuff. Healthy fats, saturated fats, eggs, cheese, milk, butter, these types of things. Housecoat Goat. Dr. Randa Patrick, among other professionals in their field, show that on the information they share with the public, most of it is gibberish to us. I find that method, however, to be a lot easier to trust rather than just listing off what we should stop doing. Okay, so again, when I'm posting something like this on Instagram, first of all, someone like Housecoat Goat or that other person, stop taking vitamin D. You're kidding me, right? Nothing's going to convince you, right? You've got an affiliation or you got a love for Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and you think she's amazing and she's posting studies. And I can't share studies in an Instagram post. I just can't. I can't put all those links in there. All I can do is refer you to the different shows we've done, and then you can do your own research, right? But it's just interesting because she says, oh, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Okay, so I need to agree with her because she's a doctor? She's really smart. I'll give her that. She's been through lots of education. I'll give her that. Is it possible she's wrong? Maybe. Possibly. I don't know. Among other professionals in their field. So as if I'm not a professional. So I should be like, oh, okay. Other professionals in their field. Okay. I should have realized that I'm not a professional and I'm not a doctor, so I can't be right about what I'm saying. I'm not providing links, and they provide links. So, you know what I mean? It's just like, come on, guys. Come on, So here's someone, Sean says, my wife was just told by a chiro to take calcium supplements. He says her muscles are stealing calcium from her bones. That sounds to me like excess vitamin D consumption, according to her x-rays. I hate to say it, but he said she's pre-osteoporosis, but so is everyone, kind of like saying she's pre-dead in my mind. If what he said is correct, then what would be recommended if we're not supposed to take calcium? Magnesium, silica, boron, there's all kinds of other minerals that through biological transmutation turn into strong, supple bones. So I would definitely not take the calcium for all the reasons I just said. So what do you recommend for people that are anemic? First of all, I listened to our show. I think it's episode 678, showing how there is no such thing as anemia. Anemia is not real. Iron deficiency anemia does not exist. So listen to that show. And then I would recommend getting on the root cause protocol or the CLF protocol, balancing your minerals, getting on some Shilajit, getting on some magnesium. I recommend getting on a magnesium protocol every day. So that is magnesium chloride, magnesium sulfate, magnesium bicarbonate, magnesium glycinate, and magnesium malate. Have a daily protocol for different forms of ingestion. Someone else says here, you have a problem with the other doctors who recommend fish oils? Sorry. So he's just going on and on saying, gosh, people. It's okay if we have different opinions, okay? It's okay if we have different opinions. So I won't go on because there's a lot more angry But I realize, this is going to be angering to people because they're putting their hope and their faith and their love and their support and their energy into a doctor who they feel is going to be their end-all be-all. But just ask yourself, any doctor you're following, if you still have health issues, you're either not listening to them or what they're saying is not the truth. So one of the two is true. They both can't be true. So my recommendation is proper mineral balance. Increasing copper. Where do you get copper if not through a supplement? There's potentially some copper supplements coming out, but since it's a metal, I really recommend it from food. And foods high in copper are typically like mushrooms, organ meats, oysters are high in copper. Let's see what else. Whole food vitamin C. We sell that through MitoLife. Bee pollen, beef liver. These are really high in copper. And then vitamin A can be found in animal fats, and retinol. That's the animal fat-based vitamin A. And then getting magnesium, having a full magnesium protocol every day, making sure you're blocking your light, making sure you're doing all the right things. So those are 14 substances that you should avoid. And I'll put all the links. And again, I'm not interested in having a debate because I know people are very upset about this because it's all this stuff is like sacred cows, right? Look at the research, try some things, and try to do the best you can, and cut some things out and see how you feel. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I kind of went on for a long time, but I just wanted to sort of get this off my chest because there's so many people that are upset about some of the things I had to say. And again, I don't have all the answers. I'm just looking at the research. I'm unbiased, so I don't have to, I don't sell, colloidal silver or citric acid supplements or vitamin D supplements. So it's not like I have a financial tie to any of these things. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there's a lot of evidence showing that what I'm saying is true. And again, there's nothing wrong with people promoting these things in my mind because they just don't know. They don't know. And yes, they should know. And they should do the work. But that's not for us to care about. That's not for us to have a reaction to. What someone else does is none of my business. What someone else thinks and what someone else promotes is none of my business. Someone wants to promote vitamin D and calcium, go for it. Someone else wants to promote vitamin, iron, go for it. Someone else wants to promote fish oils and DHA, go for it. Over time, you're going to find out that they're not good for you. But like I said before, I can't have a reaction to what other people are doing, what other people are saying, what other people are promoting. So again, my job is not to convince you of anything. My job is to present information. And if you resonate with it and you think there could be some truth there, looking at the studies, listening to all the different shows we've done on it, coming to your own conclusion, trying some things out and maybe having some success, and then try some more things and have some more success. So if you guys want to work with me, I have access to me inside the Extreme Health Academy. I'm live in there every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm in the forums every single day. I'm helping people. I'm answering questions, doing the best I can to provide information that are going to be unique, putting all of these different pieces together, the spiritual, the emotional, the minerals, the biohacking, the light, the mitochondria, the non-native EMF, all of that stuff, putting it all together. And if you say you have some issues with XYZ, I can, cherry pick some of that stuff that I think is going to move the needle the most for you. So that's why we set up the Academy, because, not only can I help you, but you can get help from other people and make friends. Because we would have a lot of people over the years, and Kate and I would say, hey, this person needs to meet that person. They're in the same area and they're interested in the same things. Dude, they should totally meet. So that's why we created the Extreme Health Academy. And so it's information that can change your life. And that's what I'm about, is giving you information that could help move the needle in massive ways for you. And so we have monthly workshops inside there live where you can ask questions, where we go deep on very practical stuff. Like with the radio show, we tend to focus more on like the what and the why kind of information. But in the Academy, we get into the nitty gritty of how do we implement a protocol that's going to help us in our life in a practical way. So I've got a ton of different quick tip videos on how to make magnesium bicarbonate, where to get certain things, protocols I'm doing. We're doing cleanses 4 times a year as a group, all kinds of cool stuff going on there. So if you want to meet a really unique and diverse and bizarre group of people, come and join us inside the Extreme Health Academy. And if you want to do that, I'd recommend joining our newsletter. And so go to extremehealthradio.com and join our newsletter. And there's a little special treat waiting for you there. That would be the best way to stay in contact with everything we're doing. Anyway, this was a super long episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please make sure to visit our sponsors for today's show, which is the aloe vera that we just mentioned, and the GreenWave dirty electricity filters, as well as the sauna and the molecular hydrogen device that we just talked about. So that's how we keep the show free. And then through the Academy is where I can help you further. If you guys need any help, further with that, please join the Academy, and I can help you in a bunch of different ways. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, if you guys want to support us on Amazon, I'm trying these days to not buy on Amazon too much, but I like to have that option out there because it's really more than supporting us. It's really taking money away from Jeff Bezos, right? So anytime you buy through Amazon, like I'll always buy through Matt Blackburn's link. We can't buy through our own links. If I buy something through my own affiliate link on Amazon, they'll cut me off. They'll kick me out. But like for example, like Matt's products at MitoLife, like go through our link, and that way you support him and me, and you get a discount too, and you get a great product. So this is a way to like subvert, the cabal kind of thing. Supporting people you love, small businesses, people doing good work, people out there trying to help people. So if you're going to buy on Amazon, go through our link, and Jeff Bezos already has enough money, right? So that'll support our show. If you want to support us like financially, we have people to do that on a monthly basis through PayPal or Patreon. You can send us $5-10 a month, and that's really supportive as well. But then just going to our store and purchasing, we have tons and tons of products on biochargeme.com. So come and join us there. And anytime you're in the market to buy some supplements, go through our link, and it supports the work we do. All right, guys, I love you guys so much. Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it sort of opened your eyes to some information that might help you. I love you, and we'll see you next week. And everything will be available at extremehealthradio.com/704. See ya.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only, and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information.